We're now at a stage where we can move from the library module to the develop module. I'm going to concentrate on this picture of a gannet here. So selecting the image, you can see the image in the Navigator panel. I'm going to go to the develop module, and here we have it. It's no longer in a grid view, and it's in a loop view, so we get the full image here. So let's just have a look through the interface. We've got the Navigator panel here, and at the moment it's set to fit. If I click on fill, you can see it just fills the available area there. Go back to fit, and it fits. If I click in the image, it will go to one of these two, either 1:1 or 2:1 or whatever we have selected down here. I'll select 4:1. Okay, so if I now click in the image, it will flip back to fit. If I click back in the image, it will go back to 4:1. Or if I have 1:1 selected, click in the image, go back to fit, click in the image, it goes back to 1:1. So you can have either fit or fill, and 1:1 or whatever size we've got here. So I normally have it at 1:1 and fit, so that I click in the image, 1:1, click in the image, fit. If you click in the image again to 1:1, you can go to the Navigator panel and drag within that rectangle to find the area that you want, or you can just click in the image and drag in the image to move around. It's worth just having a look at these menus up here to see what is available to do within Lightroom. So there's lots of different things you can do, and if you look down you can see that quite a lot of the options that you've got shortcuts as well, so it gives you an idea as to the shortcuts if you want to remember some of these. Also in the help, if you look down, we've got develop module shortcuts. So this will tell you, click on that, all the shortcuts applicable to the develop module. So that's quite useful as well. So you've got all the menus along the top. Down here we have presets, snapshots, history, and collections. So these are the panels that you've got available. And the way it's operating at present is in the solo mode. If I right click on here or here or here, I'll right click here, we have the options to show presets, snapshots, history, or collections. Or you can get rid of whatever you don't want or don't use. But it's in solo mode. If I unclick solo mode, if I now click history, snapshots, or presets, these haven't expanded because there's nothing in them at the present. But you can see that we've got presets and collections open at the same time. Now that means I might have to start scrolling. If you've got a small monitor, it's usually best to have right click solo mode so that only one panel expands at any one time, and you can do that the same with the right hand panels as well. Presets. Within presets we've got, I'm just going to create this preset here, and you can create presets by just clicking on create new preset. It brings up this dialog box here. You can give it a name, you can tell it what features to include in the preset. Of course you'd normally have changed some of these settings in any of these panels or all of these panels, and then the preset would include whatever ticks you've got checked here within that preset that you create. Okay, so I'll just cancel that. So you can create presets in that way. You can okay, but we've got some presets already created, and these are embedded within Lightroom. So if we go to color presets, we can apply an aged photo effect. Okay, and you can see it's going to change some of the settings here. It's probably going to change some of the settings in the other panels. Maybe not in that one, but it's certainly done it in some of the panels. There we go. It's, can change some of the effects here. So you can apply a preset and then you can go back and change some of the other settings on top of the preset. So a preset is kind of like the beginning stage of a process, and then you can tweak it as you like afterwards. If I particularly like this effect, I could go to Snapshots, click on the plus, just drag that into there, and we'll call that black and white 1, create. And that is a snapshot of the process applied to this image. Let's just go back to preset. I'm going to reset the image. Go to the reset button, and so it'll take it back to as the image was before I applied any treatments to it. We could go to the cross-processed treatment and maybe apply a black and white effect to it. Let's go back to our snapshots, create a snapshot. We'll call that black and white 2. And I'm going to reset again, and let's have another look at a preset, a color one maybe, direct positive, and we'll apply a few highlights a little bit brighter. We could go to the HSL panel. Let's change the saturation of the blues to maybe 0, something like that. Go back to our snapshots, create another snapshot, call that no blue, create. So we can use any of these panels and all of the panels together in combination to create another snapshot. And the idea of snapshot is, if I now click on, well, I'll just reset the image, okay, but these snapshots have remembered the processes applied to that black and white 1, to that black and white 2, to that no blue effect, okay. And each time you select one of these, in the associated panels that were affected, all the sliders will change to that particular rendering. And of course you can then go back and modify. It's like the start of the journey if you wish to go back to one of these again. So these are remembered within that image. Presets can be applied to any image that you bring into Lightroom here. Okay, so presets can be applied to that. You will not find a snapshot. There's no snapshot applicable to that image at present. Okay, so that's presets and snapshots, and in here we have the history. Now when we opened the image up, there was no history, there was nothing applied, but all the different treatments that we've been applying to the image have now been logged in the history panel. And we can, if we want to, go back in time to a specific history log and then carry out another adjustment from there, and it will eliminate all the other histories after that particular event, and we'll start a new timeline, as it will. Or we can get rid of the entire history, start again. I'm just going to press the reset button, so our image is back to as it was when we brought it in. But that history, and you can see the history has just gone and logged the reset settings. So history is quite useful because it's like a multiple undo if you wish to use it in that way. And if we want, we've got the collections panel underneath. So if we clicked one of these, it will send us to in the film strip here, it will give us the images that are in our collection. So I'm not going to select one of those at print because I'm working on this image here, and we can still get to that through our film strip. Okay, so we've been through those here. We've been through our menus. Let's go to here. We've got the histogram. Now I'm going to click on the basic panel. We'll be covering the basic panel in a future, well, in the next video. But I just want to show you the histogram. Now up here we've got what's called the show shadow clipping. I'll click on that, and the show highlight clipping. Okay. Now if I drag the white slider to the right, the black slider to the left, you can see that the whites, anything with red like that, means that we've got clipping. It means it's just showing pure white. Anything with blue means that we've got pure black pixels, and it's showing as blue. I try not to, well, I tend not to use these clipping warnings. I'll just unclick that and unclick that. I prefer to use the Alt key. So if I press the Alt key and drag the slider, you get a better rendering of where the clipping is taking place. Same with the blacks. Alt key. Okay, just a little bit of black clipping maybe. So that's a better way I find of determining the black clipping and the white clipping. We can also see where I am in the histogram, click and drag left. That's affecting the exposure slider. Click it again, right. Oh, got the shadows though. I need to go back into the central area. So the central area affects the exposure. If we click in here, that should affect the shadows. So click. Okay. In here, that should affect the highlights. So you can drag the sliders by dragging within the histogram. Here, that should affect the black slider. Drag left, drag right, and there should affect the white slider. So click, drag left, drag right. So we can change these sliders by just dragging within the histogram if you want to do that. I'll click on reset. Here we've got the tools. So I'll just have a quick look through the tools. We've got crop overlay, and you can see here we've got an overlay here showing the golden spiral. If we go to tools, we've got the tool overlay, and we've got the crop guide overlay. So we've got a selection of grid, thirds, diagonals, triangle, golden ratio, golden spiral, what we're seeing at the front. We can cycle through the grid overlay by pressing the O key, and cycle the grid overlay orientation by pressing the Shift O. So O key. So you can see the sort of guides that we have available. And if I press the Shift key, you can see that we can flip the golden spiral to get the area that we want for that particular image. We've got the tool overlay. We can always, never, so you don't see it, or auto. I usually use it on always, and maybe have the thirds, which I find most useful. We can then, don't forget we're in the crop overlay, we can just drag our crop to whatever we want. We can rotate the image. We can reset it. We can change the aspect ratio. So if we were looking for a full HD shape, that's a 16:9. So select that and And drag, reposition our bird within the 16:9 ratio. Make it a little bit bigger. Say done. I think we're not quite happy with that. Go back to our crop overlay. We just reposition it. Okay, done. So we never actually get rid of the extra information because we can just go back to the crop and re-edit it. So it doesn't eliminate anything, it just gives you a cropped in view of that particular image. So I'm going to reset that so we don't have a crop applied. The next tool is the spot removal tool. Now this has, you can either clone or heal. Usually I get the best results using heal. I don't do an awful lot of spot removal within Lightroom, preferring to do this sort of work in Photoshop. We can change the size of the brush. I'm using the wheel on my mouse here, or we can use the left bracket keys, the right bracket keys, and if we press the shift key we can change the, so left bracket keys with the shift key, right bracket keys, we can change the feather, or we can just drag within the sliders here to change the size of your brush and feather and the opacity. You normally leave this at 100%. So I'm going to click over that little area there and it automatically creates, well, it's selecting from this area here to go over there, and so I thought that was pretty good. You can, if you wish, drag the area that it's healing or cloning from, okay, to give you a different effect if it hasn't worked properly. Of course, that sort of a thing is okay like that. If you you can just press done, go back to our spot removal tool. If you don't want that anymore, just click, select it, it's gone a little black, the pin has turned black, press the delete key and it's back again. So everything is totally undoable. And of course you could have multiple spots if you wish. We've got the red eye correction. There isn't a red eye problem here, but if there was, you just select the tool, you drag over the area, and again you can change the size of the red eye effect. And you've got pet eye as well, so that's like if it's got green eye. If we go to the graduated filter, let's just dial in a little bit of underexposure and drag, click and drag. So clicking, the first part where you clicked is everything at the other side is got the full treatment of whatever you've dialed in here, and you can dial in multiple effects. That goes to the center of the gradient, and from here downwards there's no effect. Okay, so you can click and change the gradient area. So full effect, no effect, and this is the gradient here. You can click on the pin and move the entire gradient. We can wait until the mouse changes to a rotation, and we can rotate it like so. If we wish to change it like that, we can do. If you don't like it, just make sure the pin is selected, press delete, and it will disappear. So let's just apply one again, click and drag. We can show the selected mask overlay, so if we click on that we get maybe a better idea as to the extent of the gradient. Okay, get rid of the mask, and you've got always or don't show their options. We could maybe click another one, so we've got two masks now, or gradients, sorry. Okay, you'd be a little bit more artistic with the way you're doing these, but I'm just trying to show you can create multiple gradient effects. If we just double click the effect, that will centralize all these and maybe apply a dehaze. Okay, so now we've got 3 gradients, and the one that is active has got the little black center to the pin. Okay, so I'm going to select that, delete. Don't want that. Select that one, delete. Or we could just press reset. Okay, so that's the gradient or graduated filter. It's called gradient if you're in Photoshop. The radial filter, same sort of thing. Click and drag, and we can apply any of these. Any combination can be applied to it. Don't want it, click, drag. By pressing the Control key and then double clicking within the image, you can get the radial gradient to just fill the entire image, and we can change the feather. Or you can just pick up the handles and move it to wherever you want it. Okay, so I don't want that. Select, delete. And the last tool is the adjustment brush, but once again we've got the same tools here, apart from the brush size, which we can change down here, the flow, and we've got a thing called auto mask as well. Now I cover this in a little bit more detail in the part of the book on Adobe Camera Raw, but let's just have a little zoom into the wing here. I'm just pressing the shift key and just dragging this. So let's just control the highlights a little bit. I'll just drag that slider back. I'll keep it like this just so we can see the effect. You wouldn't normally have this amount of effect dialed in. You can see I'm just painting, and this is where a graphics tablet would come in really handy. Okay. You think that's a little bit too severe, so we can dial back after we've painted. Okay. Maybe just to control, if you don't want any exposure, we can just double click that and just have the highlights affecting it like that. We can show the selected mask overlay so you can get a better idea as to where the effect is being applied. We could use the auto mask, and by using the auto mask we can change the size of this and just drag within the area there. And if we've got a severe enough difference between here and the white feathers, the plumage, the auto mask feature should restrict the effect that I'm applying purely to the white feathers and not spill over into the adjacent area. But you've got to be careful because it can, it's not doing too bad an effect down there. You can start to get strange effects as it applies it to just different areas in the area that you haven't selected. So auto mask can work quite well in certain circumstances. Let's just apply it down here. Okay. See, it just spilled over there. But it hasn't done too bad a job. Now it has. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So just get rid of the mask overlay. Okay. So that is how we can use the adjustment brush. And if we want to apply a different brush, we can say maybe we want to lighten this area here. We'd go to New. Let's just double click that, centralize all these sliders, and maybe just increase exposure. And I'll do this more than I would normally do. Make the brush a bit smaller and just drag over here. Okay, and you do that with a lot more care. Now you can see we're using the auto mask. The auto mask is selected, and in these areas here it's starting to create some really horrible, strange effects. So this is where auto mask doesn't work. Okay, let's just go back to our history. Okay, so that's where the history brush is really useful. Okay, so now we can just apply our treatment again, and that's eliminated anything in the history after the history that we selected. Okay, so we've now got two adjustments, and we can see that by the pin there where I first selected. I'll just select the overlay. So that's the pin there, and you can see that affects that area there. This pin here affects that area there. And again, all we need to do if we want to change the effect, we can just drag the relevant slider. Select that one there. The slider changes to whatever was selected for that slider, and we can modify that. And a bit of, so we can apply any of these sliders in multiple adjustments to whichever pin we have selected. Okay, so I've been through all of the things I want to on this particular video, and the next video will cover the basic panel, which is down here.